Fusion was always the last resort ability in Dragon Ball for the strongest master duo in the universe, Goku and Vegeta, in pretty much every form of media up until the reveal of Mastered Ultra Instinct in Dragon Ball Super Episode 129, with them resorting to either the fabled Spirit Bomb or this fusion against pretty much anybody they couldn't touch. Super Buu with everyone absorbed, Janemba, Fusion Zamasu, Broly, and of course Omega Shenron. Much of the time they would fuse against other people that would fuse, but in this case we are talking about a very specific fusion, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Gogeta was the original Goku and Vegeta fusion, actually being conceptualized in movie 12 before Vegito in the manga, if you would believe it. From his initial showing, both Gogeta and Vegito absolutely dominated and no-diffed both of their adversaries, with Gogeta doing a backflip, blitzing, tanking, and then one-shotting Janemba, while Super Vegito toyed with Buu in the hopes of saving his friend. The Dragon Ball Z anime would then continue with the Dragon Ball GT, a side continuation without Toriyama's main story involved. However, this would create the ultimate franchise powerhouse, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta had aura, a lot of aura. He was an Exodia, Saitama, game over type character in almost everything he appeared in for over a decade straight, with zero contention of his role at the top from 1997 until 2013. With the first contender for Gogeta's title being the reveal of Beerus, the God of Destruction. Whenever you'd see him in a video game, you'd know in your head, this guy's using the strongest character in the game, with zero debate. To the point that in Budokai 3, you could basically only use him for around 20 seconds at a time before you were forced out of using him after a very complicated and risky transformation sequence. Once again, like an Exodia type figure. He toyed with Omega Shenron like he was Sun Wukong, the strongest villain we'd ever see again for basically some people's entire childhoods, claiming he could box him with one finger, in contrast to Super Vegito, claiming he could beat Buu with just kicks. He had a Super Saiyan God like Super Saiyan 4 aura with Mario invincibility stars within it that made him seem next level. This ultimacy of Gogeta is what set him up for the modern day power cliffing to run him the hands, this overwhelming, unbeatable Super Saiyan 4 potentially being able to lose to some nonsense character like this unimposing dork from Universe 6 in his base form. For this video, I'm going to attempt to speak in more easy to understand and simpler methods. There are two things to first go over to deduce Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's strength, and then we get into the advanced details later. For one, how strong is Goku in GT? And then two, how strong is Super Saiyan 4 to begin with? Goku in GT has been training for around 15 years straight since the battle with Majin Buu, with 5 of those being an intense training session with Buu's reincarnation, Oob. Their battles are so intense that even in base form it's implied that they will destroy the entire planet if they don't fight inside the time chamber or in an alternate dimension. They get so powerful that by the time guys that are Majin Buu level threats come around, Goku is actually toying with them heavily. In fact, the entire series pretty much up until that point, he has been not feeling the need to actually go all out. One of these Majin Buu level threats, Rildo, actually has to pull a Moro and fuse with the literal planet and amplify his size by unfathomable amounts to even compete with Goku, in which it becomes more of an endurance match or hacks off rather than overpowering him. Shortly later, Baby is being engineered by a doctor named Mu to be the next Cell, and absorbs Rildo's power and many others to sort of manifest him. When Baby eventually possesses Vegeta, we start to see the limits of GT Goku's strength for the first time, with Baby in the equivalent of his Super Saiyan form as stated in the GT Perfect files, basically no diffing Super Saiyan 3 Goku, making Baby Vegeta at least over 8 times stronger than Goku, base to base, since Super Saiyan 3 is 8 times stronger than Super Saiyan Grade 4 or Super Saiyan 1. Baby Vegeta then gets his own version of Super Saiyan 3, known as Super Baby 2, and forms a death ball of sorts that makes Goku excited, since he's never actually seen power like that ever before. This is the first implication that Super Baby 2 is stronger than even Super Vegito from the Buu saga, which has a lot of implications within itself. While you could argue perhaps a hypothetical Super Saiyan 3 Vegito could be stronger than Super Baby 2, since Super Saiyan 3 isn't a power you can inherently feel within you, you have to kind of reach deep and then pull it out, Baby should probably clap Super Buuhan pretty easily, which is the only real important thing right now. Since Buhan was going to collapse the living world or the universe by screaming a vice shout so large and massive it would destabilize the space and time of basically their reality until alternate dimensions and realities would come crashing through and obliterate everything. The way that outside space, as it's called, is titled is a bit strange, since sometimes it implies Super Boo will make a vice shout portal as big as pretty much the universe, and other times it's implied to crack it and thus weakening it enough to allow the other dimensions to do the rest, like tapping on a fish tank and cracking it. Then the water may break the rest and spill out. Baby surpassing Buon is also supported by the way his revenge death ball actually hits Kibito Kai mid-instant transmission. Instant transmission in the Toei-verse, while it may function differently than the main story, may have properties such as traveling between a subspace that has no space and time, yet Baby's attack broke through this barrier, slams them in the travel space, and knocks Goku into an alternate realm. The only way this isn't the case is because Toei is just failing to explain what a wormhole is, as it was in older time when it was made. This is shown somewhat with Janemba vs Vegeta, where Vegeta throws an attack at a place Janemba teleported or warped from, and it follows Janemba to his warp point. Infinite Zamasu in Dragon Ball Super has something similar to this, where his energy can travel through time to connect from the portal the time machine left. So you could argue Baby did something similar, however it's hard to say. Goku vs Metal Cooler has some strange scenes like this too, whereas in the main story they just instantly reappear, and in Toei there seems to be a midpoint or a warp zone they go through instead. If you go further into Baby being potentially stronger than Vegito, which many people do consider, however it is heavily contested, and I wish to make that clear, if he is, he would also default to being stronger than Super Gogeta from Fusion Reborn. Super Gogeta from Fusion Reborn is compared to Vegito, and they are considered somewhat contentious battle rivals. While Vegito and Gogeta made of the same Goku and Vegetas would probably be Vegito favored, in this case the movieverse closes the gap and makes Gogeta a canon Vegito rival. Gogeta then, by simply appearing, generates an aura so massive that it rivals the Big Bang in power. Not the Big Bang attack from Dragon Ball, but the Big Bang as in the theory and phenomena that generated our real universe. I feel as though scaling Gogeta here to Baby is also fitting, since we will be talking about Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, who scales above this, which I'll go over later, even if you don't think the Baby scaling above the movies thing is valid. The Big Bang itself has sort of evolved over the years. While some people may think of it as something that made all the matter in the universe, it probably goes a bit further than that, with many speculating and considering it to be the start of space and time. So Gogeta's aura was above a universal space-time generating phenomenon, and its power and aura could even be felt outside of this hermetically sealed off portion of a multi-universal size macrocosm space, while Super Gogeta's aura didn't even necessarily fill up all of the afterlife, and can't be denied what it is capable of, as well as its ability to spread to other portions of the Universe 7 orb and be sensed. Super Baby 2 then potentially scales above that if you think he scales above Super Vegito, and you consider Buu Saga Super Vegito and Fusion Reborn Super Gogeta somewhat in a similar order of magnitude due to guide statements. This of course falls apart if you think that it's just talking about Vegito versus Gogeta conceptually, rather than, say, a specific Vegito versus a specific Gogeta. So that is the more advanced line of argument, but for this video's sake, we'll just consider Gogeta from Fusion Reborn stronger than the Buu Saga, or relative to the Buu Saga variants. This would give Baby and GT Goku a sort of beyond time-like scaling that most super characters would have, with Metal Cooler arguably having a type of inaccessible speed in his movie due to the instant transmission battle that him and base Goku have, albeit that's debatable as I once said, and the beyond time Big Bang power scaling of Super Gogeta. After the Baby arc, Goku then fights Super 17 with more ferocity than Majub as just a Super Saiyan 1. Whereas before, Majub was arguably and considerably stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku in the Baby arc, implying Goku then gets over 8 times stronger from Baby to Super 17. He then gets even more powerful before the Shadow Dragons, however it isn't as quantifiable. But Goku then gets Super Saiyan 4, which lets him beat Baby, and in fact, Baby 2 gets Golden Great Ape on top of his already Buhan or Super Gogeta or whatever type strength, which is quite considerable as well, above the scaling already mentioned, which Goku then rivaled at full strength. So now we have to really get into just what is the multiplier of Super Saiyan 4.
The multiplier for Super Saiyan 4 is never directly stated anywhere, unlike Super Saiyan 1 through 3 in the Super Exciting Guide, and falls more into that ominous, unknowable territory like Super Saiyan God currently is in Dragon Ball Super. However, we have good ideas and some good theories. Many will usually say that it is 10 times Super Saiyan 3 for the fact that Baby goes Golden Great Ape on top of his power and Super Saiyan 4 rivals it. Great Ape is at least 10 times, with Baby already being in a Super Saiyan 3 state as stated before, meaning he's weirdly a Super Saiyan 3 Great Ape realistically. People also base it off the 10 times Kamehameha. However, this is all not true. As I demonstrated pretty simply, Baby is not just a Golden Great Ape, he is a Super Saiyan 3 Great Ape, and not only this, but he was already 8 times stronger than Goku from before. Then goes Great Ape on top of that. So he goes from facing Goku as a Super Saiyan to then transforming into a Super Saiyan 3 to then going Great Ape on top of that. Meaning, bare minimum, he gets over 80 times stronger than Goku's Super Saiyan 3 level in this state. And Super Saiyan 4 rivals it at full power, making Super Saiyan 4 less of a 4,000 times overall multiplier and more at the bare minimum, more like a 32,000 times multiplier, really being critical and very skeptical. The 10 times Kamehameha is also a technique and not a strength statement. I'll go over that during the Gogeta portion soon. Other multipliers for Super Saiyan 4 may exaggerate using Super Saiyan Grade 4 and so on. However, Super Saiyan 4 may be less of a multiplier as it is rather a realization of a certain level of strength or potential. In the GT Perfect Files and the Daizenshu sequel Chozenshu, Super Saiyan 4 is called the ultimate form of Goku. Interestingly, Vegito and Gogeta are also forms of Goku, as is Super Saiyan God, but we'll go over that more near the end. Meaning if you really wanted to stretch it, you could potentially get Super Saiyan 4 to have a fusion type level multiplier, which would be fighter times fighter. This is actually not too alien to Dragon Ball, as the newer Ultra forms in Super tend to be quite like that, if not far beyond a fusion level multiplier. In this case, since Goku at the bare minimum is over 400 times stronger than he was during Namek due to his scaling to Kid Buu as we outlined in the beginning, and you had Vegeta be his rival per se, a hypothetical Gogeta or Vegito multiplier in GT could be in the billions. And yet Super Saiyan 4 is called the ultimate form, not them. One thing to note about this though is that it may be referring to just GT and talking about Goku's transformations itself. And while Vegito is technically a form, it's talking about how Goku would transform into Vegito after performing a specific set of actions with someone else, while Super Saiyan 4 is something Goku can just transform into whenever he wants, like Frieza can turn into his various forms and so on. Vegito might also be considered an individual. Gogeta also has a strange statement in the GT Perfect Files where he is stated to be dozens of times that of a Super Saiyan 4 rather than, say, billions of times. However, most of the times, Dragon Ball will use dozens as a placeholder for unquantifiably massive. Similar statements, however, are made for Super Buu in the form arguments and others when it comes to those. So for this to be Goku's ultimate form is actually quite an impressive statement, and by this logic, a Super Saiyan 4 fusion might be like fusing two fusions together. What a headache. The only counter to this is that in the Dragon Ball and GT animation guide, it says that Vegito is perhaps stronger than a Super Saiyan 4 in his base state. Considering this is a GT guide, it is pretty valid to bring it up. Some will try to argue that it's talking about Super Vegito, however the picture clearly just shows base form Vegito when he first appears on it. Super Saiyan 4 is also right next to Super Saiyan God in the Chozenshu, which says this ultimate form statement. However, you can quickly dispel this by saying that Super Saiyan 4 is Goku's ultimate form in GT, whereas he doesn't have access to Super Saiyan God in GT, which seems to actually be the ritual God form in the book, rather than just something he can transform into at will. The book also says that Super Saiyan 4 surpasses Super Saiyan 3, but that Super Saiyan God far surpasses Super Saiyan 3, implying it itself thinks God gaps 3 harder than 4 gaps 3, if anything. You'd really have to come into some really disingenuous timeline arguments like saying that the old Toei sites would put GT after Battle of Gods on the timeline and so on, so therefore they must be taking place in the same timeline. But most people know that it's just talking about the years it takes place in chronologically, not the literal reality. Like how the Broly movie takes place near the Cell games, but he's not literally in the Cell games timeline. However, if you do take it that way, then Super Saiyan 4 would be the ultimate form even above Super Saiyan God, and Super Saiyan God in Battle of God surpasses even Super Saiyan 3 Vegito from the same arc. Of course, this Super Saiyan God isn't referring to Dragon Ball Super's version, which punches away the universe, just only the Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods variation. The only support for this may come from the video games, where it's implied GT Goku actually knows Beerus somehow. It should also be noted that the original Battle of Gods was actually Dragon Ball Z, with Dragon Ball Z's anime reaching into GT at the end, so Toei may have initially thought that they would take place in the same anime timeline, only learning later that this wasn't the case. Toei has made jump-the-gun mistakes like this in the past, like when they said Janemba was the strongest movie villain on their website, but quickly got corrected by Koyama, the movie director, and removed the post entirely from existence. The last real indicator of some potential multipliers that you can kind of derive is from a V-Jump issue from 1997, which says some very groundbreaking things I think you guys will really enjoy. So let's go over that now. When Goku and Vegeta finally fuse into Gogeta, they move so fast, they even blitz Omega Shenron and even the viewer, having to slow down for both of us to even see him. He can then easily defeat Omega, someone who is in a highly nerfed state, who can handle a fatigued Super Saiyan 4 Goku's ×10 Kamehameha. And in his full power state, the Omega state, couldn't even be put down from a combined hypothetical attack from Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta like Final Flash or Final Shine, or Goku with the 10x Kamehameha involved. The 10x Kamehameha is its own beast, and there's a reason that it was so OP in Budokai 3. In V-Jump, this is what's stated about it. A true warrior, talking about Super Saiyan 4 Goku, with infinite power. Notice the mathematical symbol for infinite. Red Kamehameha. Of course, this is the Red Warrior's Super Saiyan 4 special move, Kamehameha. However, unlike a normal Kamehameha, he combines the red energy, Kaioken, he has gathered in both hands to create a red beam. This is Super Saiyan 4 Goku's version. Its power must be dozens of times stronger than Goku's regular Kamehameha. Another guide, the GT Perfect Files, then says that this attack is his strongest technique, and if it fails, nothing else will work. Not only does this imply, however, and just outright state with a mathematical symbol, that Super Saiyan 4 Goku has infinite power like he's a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card, potentially an infinite multiplier if he wasn't infinite before, but the Kamehameha is then probably about your base power, a bit above it. This means Goku can multiply his power possibly dozens of times over above his normal, already infinite strength. This attack even eclipses the Dragon Fist, which was stated Goku's ultimate technique before GT, in other guides as well, meaning it may even surpass the Spirit Bomb and so on. You'll also notice that it implies Super Saiyan 4 Goku, yes, that it's possible he amplifies his attacks with Kaioken on top of it, meaning even Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta can potentially amplify his power by dozens of times, not only with the 10x Kamehameha if you wanted, but using Kaioken on top of all that, meaning the power he used against Omega Shenron was realistically nothing, even with the comment of using one finger. So maybe he really wasn't exaggerating. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is then even implied to be stronger above 100-year timeskip base Goku as the strongest warrior in the GT Perfect Files, which I go over just how insane that might be in this video here. Omega Shenron was not only potentially dozens of times greater than Goku, but his sheer energy and aura was going to then spread throughout the universe and eradicate it, and possibly the greater macrocosm if you ask a certain guy. Yet Gogeta dispelled all of that power with only slight effort, shifting the mathematical properties of Omega Shenron's attack, like he's Gojo, and seemingly almost completely canceling out the concept of negativity in the entire area. He can clone himself, shift his powers into confetti, and overall possesses many unique traits that Goku and Vegeta don't seem to have, similar to how Vegito can turn into a gumball and be perfectly fine. This character is not only probably thousands or even millions, but potentially billions upon billions of times greater than a being who created a phenomena on par with the time-space generating Big Bang that could be felt from all around the macrocosm and reality itself from merely appearing into existence, while potentially surpassing Goku who was trained for 100 years. No wonder he had to be taken out of the show ASAP. Here are a few things to consider based on what I said that should be conceded in advance. For one, you don't have to apply the movies as canon to GT whatsoever. There's no actual confirmation, it is only somewhat implied. So you could be skeptical and deny this. However, most people consider them connected as it explains the fusion dance, dragon fist, and so on. However, you can realistically just say no, and the GT scaler cannot really do anything about it. The only issue this gives Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is massive upscaling from Super Gogeta from Fusion Reborn. Even the argument that Vegito from the Buu Saga is his rival may be interpretive as well, as you could simply say that it's talking about the same Vegito versus the same Gogeta, rather than two hyper-specific alternate dimension versions of them fighting each other. Should be noted though that even without the movies, that Gogeta is then not only stated to be the strongest in the series, but strongest possibly in every single conceivable dimension in the franchise. This is in clear reference to the movieverse, which Toriyama calls a different dimension in many interviews, meaning Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is highly likely above Gogeta and his Big Bang scaling from Fusion Reborn, even if you don't want to connect them. Once again, the only thing that gets lost is that Gogeta loses sort of his calc stacking, such as being millions of times above the Big Bang rather than just above the Big Bang. Every dimension could include the main dimension as well, so it could be questioned that Gogeta could be stronger than every single character that could even exist in Dragon Ball Super or Daima. However, this is obviously a reach for obvious reasons. I don't think I need to explain why that is. Gogeta also has a unique argument from Heroes, where Heroes fights the timeline-altering time breakers that quickly start to reach and face higher dimensional entities like Demigra and so forth, where they can leave their own video game and surpass it, albeit this is early in the Heroes story before all of that, and normally Heroes wouldn't even be commented on. However, in this case, in the Heroes manga, it makes it hyper clear and very specific that the Gogeta you're seeing in this is from Dragon Ball GT. Not just a random Heroes Gogeta, but Dragon Ball GT, meaning this one you find in GT could do exactly what he does in this Heroes manga, theoretically, according to the author, stomping out Finn's controlled Dark Gogeta while not even going all out, albeit cross-scaling continuities like that gets pretty dubious, let's be realistic. It is an interesting way of putting Gogeta even potentially higher as someone able to fight even time breakers that mess with literal dimensions, ignoring time, space, and possibly reaching pseudo-fictional transcendence later in their run. However, in Heroes, Gogeta isn't even the strongest character. Even Timebreaker Bardock, in base form, can take a punch from a super serious one in older material alone, let alone the new and advanced characters. As a fun fact, this is why I used to think Timebreaker Bardock was super cool when I made him my PFP when I was younger, by the way. Another hyper-consistent Super Saiyan 4 argument would also look like Super Saiyan God greater than Potara greater or relative to Super Saiyan 4, as the guides mentioned earlier imply both Potara and Super Saiyan 4 are just above Super Saiyan 3, but Super Saiyan God is far above 3, with Potara implied to be potentially be stronger in another guide than 4. This would be most consistent with all the material available without ignoring anything or claiming contradiction. Said if you want to go with the ultimate form argument and say that it's Super Vegito being referenced that surpasses Super Saiyan 4 instead. It could even be implied that against Omega Shenron, Gogeta had to put some effort into negating his Karma Ball, and he used quite a lot of power to do so, as every guide will say his fusion lasts 10 minutes, but in the show, after the Karma Ball feat, it lasts less than 10 minutes, implying he did put some effort into it. This is similar to how Vegito Blue diffused from his final Kamehameha faster in Dragon Ball Super, which was basically the super equivalent of this battle, even in terms of episode number. Since some of you will then obviously ask, getting to the point most of you are here for, what about the Cabba meme, programmer? Well, if you go by the billions upon billions of times Big Bang multi-universal spanning energy and hero scaling, Cabba might struggle to find a good argument to beat Gogeta. However, if you really downplay, say, Super Buu Gohan absorbed, don't let the movie scale the GT, which is fair, albeit, come on bro, then Gogeta would get locked out of being a multi-universal plus, a potentially higher dimensional entity like a Super Saiyan God Goku or Cabba argument would usually go. People say he rivals Vegeta in the Universe 6 arc, which surpasses that base Super Saiyan God Essence argument, and even can somewhat be in a similar magnitude in the Tournament of Power, which surpasses the existence erasing Super Saiyan God from Battle of Gods by far as they absorbed it in their base. Some will say that God level being their new base is retcon, but honestly, that's just as dishonest as saying the movies shouldn't apply to GT. I think all in all, it's far more complex than people make it out to be, and while I think Dragon Ball Super does eclipse Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta with much more promotional material, implying we've never seen characters as strong as many that appear in Super throughout all of Dragon Ball's history as just a franchise, I do think Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta got way too much flack from all the memes, got a little too downplayed. He is pretty tough even by today, and while I won't go too much into GT versus Super, I kind of enjoy watching you guys all fight about it, I'm not gonna lie. I do hope you guys enjoyed it regardless, so thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.